All right, everybody, this is going to be your second packet for Unit 7, and I've gone ahead and put the whole rest of the unit into this packet. That's why it's so big, but it's also going to last for 2 weeks worth of work. So anyway, we start off by doing something called factoring polynomials. Factors, if you can remember, if you have a number like 15, then you can split it into 3 times 5. 3 and 5 would be the factors of 15. So when you take a polynomial, you're going to, it's almost like reverse distributive property. Anyway, let's look at the review. If I'm asking you to simplify, now I'm not factoring these. I'm going to simplify these. I'm going to distribute the a. Remember, a times 3a is 3a squared. A times 7 is going to be plus 7a. Now look at this relationship. This is simplified. This is factored. If I were to reverse the process of distributing, I'd be factoring out the a. Notice when you factor out an a, you're dividing it out. Look at the next one. If I distribute this, then it turns into negative 2m cubed, because that's a m to the first and an m to the second. So 1 plus 2 is 3. Negative 2 times positive 6 is a negative 12, and then it would be m squared. And then negative 2m times negative 1 would make this a positive 2m. This is simplified, but now we're going to switch from getting a simplified polynomial, and we need to reverse it and factor it. So we're kind of dividing out the greatest common factor. Finally, 5xy times x minus 2y. 5xy times x is 5x squared y. And then 5xy times negative 2y is a negative 10xy squared. What is factoring? Well, and for my definition, it's the reverse of distributing. Polynomials that cannot be factored are called prime. It's just like taking a number 7. The number 7 doesn't have any factors except for 7 and 1, so we call 7 a prime number. Polynomials that don't have any factors besides 1 in themselves are also called prime. So there's going to be several ways to factor. I'm not going to do every single one of them, but I'm going to focus on ones that you're going to need for this class and for future math classes. So we'll start easy. Number 1, if I want to this is simplified, 3x plus 12. The greatest common factor here is a 3. 3 goes into 3, 3 goes into 12. So if I take 3x and divide by 3, the 3's cancel. So watch, the number that I'm factoring out is 3. Now I'm going to open parentheses. What's left is the x. Now a positive 12 divided by 3 is a positive 4. This is factored. The way to check your answer is to go back and distribute. If I redistribute this 3, then I end up with what I started with. This is the answer because they want it in factored form. If they want it simplified, then they would want a 3x plus 12 as an answer. Let's go to number 3. 5x plus 30y. The greatest common factor between the two are the 5 and is a 5. 5 goes into 5, 5 goes into 30. So the number that I can factor out of this is a 5. So I put that on the outside of the parentheses. Now, I take the first term and I divide it by 5. I'm left with x. I take the second term and divide it by 5, and I'm left with 6y. And again, this is the answer. The way to test the answer is to redistribute it. 5 times x gives me 5x. 5 times 6y would give me that positive 30y. So again, it's reverse distributing. Let's see here with this one, 6a squared plus 27. the greatest common factor here, and this is why I've always pushed you guys to know your multiplication facts inside and out, because if you can't see the greatest common factor here, this is going to be very difficult for you. But the greatest common factor of the 6 and the 27 is a 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3, and now I'm going to divide each of the terms by 3. 6a squared divided by 3 is 2a squared. 27 divided by 3 is a positive 9. So again, if I were to redistribute that 3, I'd be back to where I started. This is factored form, this is simplified form. Now let's look at number 7. Actually, let's look at number 6. Number 6. See how number 6, both of the terms have a y. So that means we can factor out a y. We can also factor out a coefficient or a constant. Since 4 goes into negative 24, we're going to factor out a 4, but we're also going to factor out 1y, or y to the first. So open parentheses. So look, if I take 4y squared and I divide by 4y, then what's left is just a y. Let me show this a little more stretched out. If I have 4y squared divided by 4y, it's just like saying 4 times y times y. And if I divide by 4y, these two would cancel, leaving me with y to the first as the other factor. So anyway, so 4y times the y. Now I divide the negative 24y by y. Negative 24 divided by 4 is going to be negative 6. These two y's cancel. So this is the answer. 4y times y would give me 4y squared. Now, I really do want you to check your answers by redistributing. This is the best way to know that you've done it correctly. So again, 4y times y gives me that 4y squared. 4y times negative 6 gives me the negative 24y. So this is factored. In number 7, the greatest common coefficient is a 3, and they both have a d. So we can factor out a 3 and a d. Open parentheses. So now I have to divide each term by 3d. Divide the coefficients. 21 divided by 3 is a 7. The two d's cancel, leaving me with a c. Now here, notice it's the exact same thing. It doesn't mean 0. Whenever you have one term divided by itself and it is negative, you have to make it a 1. And there you go. So it would be 7c minus 1. If I go to check it, 3d times 7c is 3 times 7 is 21. And then remember, you alphabetize those variables. So 3d. And then 3d times negative 1 is a negative 3d. Number 9. For coefficients, it looks like 15 is going to work. Don't use 5 because it won't be completely factored. 15 goes into 30 evenly, so we will be factoring out 15. Notice there's an a squared here and just an a here. You can only use the lowest exponent to divide. So we've got a squared, we've got a to the first, so all we can take out is a to the first, because this term does not have an a squared to factor out. Both of them do have a b, so I can factor out a b. So 15ab would be called my GCF, my greatest common factor. And let me go ahead and divide by 15ab. Notice that 15 cancels 15, a squared and a. Remember, when you divide variables or when you divide bases that have the same variable, you subtract the exponents. It's just like the example up here. So a squared divided by a leaves me with just a to the first. The two b's cancel. So all that's left for that first term is an a. Now here, if I divide by 15ab, The negative 30 divided by 15 is going to be negative 2, but the a and the b both cancel. So this would be factored. Finally, this number 11, we can factor out an a with both of them. So if I factor out an a on this one, we're left with b, and then this turns into a negative 1. All right, so that was page 1 of packet 2.